Good evening and welcome to another edition of Bits and Pieces NYC. Today is Thursday, and so today, we're going to be talking cricket. It's a good day for cricket outside. We have a very special guest with us this evening, but we'll take a break, and when we come back, Basil will introduce our guest. All right, we're back. This is Bits and Pieces. Basil, please go ahead and introduce our guest.
With us tonight, we have former Guyana batsman, national batsman Mark Harper, who played for Guyana both at the youth and senior level, and was also is also a coach, still actively coaching, and somebody who is very knowledgeable about the game. You will always enjoy the conversation with Mark regarding cricket, and Mark, why one of the main reasons we have Mark here today, Mark was both a club teammate with the late Roy Fredericks, former West Indies opening and Guyana opening batsman. He played with him from club for the country and in inter-county cricket. So Mark will be able to give us a lot of insight about Fredericks as a player and other things about the man we used to call Fredo. Good evening, Mark.
Okay. Okay, Mark. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence, and like I said earlier, welcome aboard. Before we get to Fredericks, Mark, for us, who might be a little out of the loop, away from Guyana, give us a brief thing of what's happening with Guyanese cricket. What's happening with cricket in Guyana?
Brief and Guyanese cricket, oh God, those two words don't go together, talk. Well, at the present time, we have a new administration in, I think, where they're over a year or something in. And some interesting decisions are being made,
Right.
Right now, I think they're preparing for the West Indies regional under 19 tournament, I think so. And we just had the ladies tournament here, which Guyana really didn't do too well. Not surprisingly, because ladies cricket has been pretty dominant in Guyana for a long time. The national team also didn't do as well as we were hoping that they could have done, but they had some good individual performances, and that is a whole different story. With our national teams and how they're being selected and put together and what have you and so.
Right.
But cricket is very vibrant. We in the Georgetown region, we have a very, very vibrant program led by our president, Mr. Neil Barry, and our youth teams are doing pretty well. So far we are the under 15, under 17, now about to go into the under 19 tournament, and then there's the regional, then there's the countrywide inter-association tournament about to start too. Cricket is being played whenever it could during this time because now it's the rainy period, so it's pretty.
Okay, thank you for that, Mark. All right, we'll take a brief break, and when we come back, our umpire in residence, Brian Chain, will give us a quick rundown on what's happening with cricket in the USA. All right, over to you, Brian. What's been going on with cricket in the good old USA?
Well, good evening, Anansi. Good evening, Basil. Very nice to meet you. Mark, thank you for the update on Guyana cricket. Here in the U.S., things are popping off. There is minor league cricket happening all over the country. Last week was the first week for minor league cricket all the way around the country. Myself and the Eastern Division got started in New York and in New Jersey and in Pennsylvania, where I was at the helm of 2 games over the weekend, but about 7 were played in the division over the weekend. This weekend is a huge weekend for minor league cricket. About 20 teams from minor league cricket are going to be in Prairie View and Musa Stadium, Texas, where I will be as well, playing a huge carnival over the 4th of July weekend, starting tomorrow night at 5 p.m. Eastern time and going all the way through until Monday. At the same time, it's a little bit of a shame because all of you, the USA's best T20 players, have just left for Zimbabwe, where they're going to go play a series of warm-up games and go play in T20 World Cup qualifiers over there in Africa. So while it's going to be a huge weekend, a lot of the foreign stars are going to be on display through minor league cricket, and some of the sort of second-tier players are going to be playing. All of our best cricket stars are over in Africa trying to qualify us for a World Cup. So it's a big weekend coming up, both on the international and the national stage. And if you've got nothing to do on 4th of July weekend, there's going to be cricket all over your computers.
All right. That's Brian Kane with our USA Roundup. All right. When we come back, we're going to get right into our chat about the late, great Roy Fredericks. All right. Mark, I'm going to come to you first. When you, as a cricketer and as a person, when you hear the name Roy Fredericks, what do you see instantly? What comes to mind instantly?
What comes to mind instantly? A very outstanding cricketer, a very, very nice gentleman, and also one of the heroes of West Indies cricket. For several reasons, I would say that, right? He was very impactful in a lot of ways. Back when we played, the test players were legends, and they were often willing to assist the young players coming up, and they were a very integral part of club life. Hello?
Give it to you, Mark. I can hear you. All right, but I'll pick it up before so until Mark gets back.
Well, for me, Roy Fredericks, my first remembrance of Roy Fredericks was a very long time ago. It was my father's last tour in 1969 to England. And myself and my brother and my mother went with West Indies team to England, and we stayed with my mother's father there. So we traveled with the team. And occasionally my father, whenever he had a break, or they were in London, he would always come by the house, and that was my first memories of Roy Fredericks. And then seeing him as I grew up in the 70s, going to see cricket, and
Right.
say whether it's West Indies or Guyana playing, seeing him play, you know, and he was one of those players that when as you probably yourself, when Fredo was there at the wicket, you know there would be some fireworks. And what was what one of the interesting things I just to recollect in terms of him, because he was this batsman that was a shotgun, as some might call it, but despite that he could bat for long periods, because if you remember, he made a 250 against Barbados. A lot of people don't remember that, in Barbados, you know.
Okay.
So it showed that he could temper the the aggressiveness with batting for long periods as is required in Test cricket. And another thing a lot of people may not know, Roy Fredericks got 2 centuries on his only tour to India, you know. And so he showed that skill there. And my dad always used to say about Fredo, he felt, his opinion, Fredo was as good as any opening batsman that played for the West Indies. And he often would say Fredo was unheralded. And just to finish, in the days when Fredo was playing, scoring 4,000 runs in Test cricket was a significant milestone. And he was one of the few who, in his playing career, scored over 4,000 Test runs.
Okay. Thank you for that. How you, Mark? You okay where you are?
Yeah, I'm a bit better now. I tried to come out of the room I was in because I was getting some noise from next door, and I ran into
Okay, cool.
my yeah, man. The memories of Fredo, I mean, I was fortunate, as I said, because I played for DCC with him.
Mhm.
And this guy would turn up to practice early. He would practice serious, you know what I mean? On a Saturday, you know, when he came for the club, he was really apply himself, you know.
Right.
And you know, he during the game he would guide you, you know, if you're batting with him, you know, and then after cricket, you know, he would remain in the dressing room, and you know, we would discuss the day's play, you know what you did well, you know, and he would talk about his different experiences. Listen, back in the day, then we had television, you know, we had a
Right.
TV with a VCR, and you know, he would show some of the matches away. I remember the
Mhm.
Duran and fight. He took the whole, must be about 25 men to his house in Lamar Gardens to look at that fight. You know,
Oh,
um,
he was a full sports fan, I take it.
yes, but the thing what was very significant, other than his play on the field, is
Mhm.
off the field, and this went for Basil Butcher too. I think I told Basil Jr. about his father too. After cricket, it's not like now. After cricket, sometimes you coming out the field, the guys are already going home. No. Them fellas used to stay there after cricket. They buy a little drink. As a youngster, you can't drink nothing strong either. It's not like now. And you listen to these fellas that speak about the game. That's how you learn. He was very impactful. You know, during this time, you know, the Tricks and the Butchers and the Germans and the Lance Gibbs and those guys. And that is what made our cricket so good, because the test players were stars. Not because they had a big carry long from here to tomorrow and they got a lot of money, but the way that they played the game.
Mhm.
They went out there and they showed you in certain situations how you need to apply yourself and that sort of thing. And then, you know, you want to score quickly and what have you, setting fields, how you bowl to different players and this sort of thing, you know. They spoke a lot about the game, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a lot of time for Fredo, man. I had a lot of time for him.
All right. So we're gonna get into the nitty gritty as we move along. Quickly from Brian. Of course, unlike the three of us here, you would not have grown up with Fredo. He's virtually a stranger to you. But as you would have read about him, the little you would have read, and as someone who's recently started getting into the game, you're an umpire now. What was your first take of Fredo as you read about him?
Well, it was really interesting to do a little bit of research on Roy Fredo today. I immediately went, of course, to his famous 169 at Perth against the Australians, which there are clips of online, which you can watch. And I love the way he sort of gloriously moved just outside of the off stump and was able to whip the ball off of his legs. A lot like the modern players are starting to move across and whip the ball to the back to the onside the way are today. And I love the way that he sort of embodied what we're now seeing again in cricket. And to watch this man do that in 75, I thought was pretty amazing. I also read a little bit about him then going to World Series cricket after he was done his main West Indies career. And I know that there's a lot of politics around joining Kerry Packer's crew during that time about playing for that world team and that West Indies team. But I want to know what were the implications for him? What is his legacy about that? Those of you guys who were there, because it seems to me the way I read it, the way I understand it, was after he had retired from his main career, he went on to World Series cricket. How did that, work for somebody like him who was maybe out of the main team by then?
All right. You want to take that, Basil?
Yeah.
The impact of the Kerry Packer.
Yeah, but he actually was playing Kerry Packer and the West Indies, because the first year of Kerry Packer, he was still an active player. And it was because of Kerry Packer where he said he couldn't deal with the load of playing Test cricket and Kerry Packer, and he retired, right? And what was funny, 1 year later, Kerry Packer folded, and I think Fredo put his name back in the ring to get back into the West Indies team, and unfortunately, the selectors didn't want to have no parts of Fredo again.
Well, that's hard. I've heard lots of stories from that time with people sort of crossing, it's almost like crossing a picket line sometimes to go play for somebody else.
Well, the Packer thing, let me just put it quick context. What happened, where cricketers were grossly underpaid, for one. Kerry Packer had bid to Cricket Australia to get the TV contract to televise Australia cricket, Test cricket, right? He did not win the bid. So he decided he was going to put his own cricket together to televise his cricket to spite the Cricket Australia, the establishment, right? Because Packer at the time had been seen as a maverick by the establishment. And so he was able to garner all the great players in the world at the time to all assemble in Australia and play. And the West Indies board was the only board at the time that did not ban their players. So they come in before the next season. Australia comes to the Caribbean with a second 11 team, and we are playing our full strength team and demolishing them. And a couple new guys signed up: Colin Croft, Desmond Haynes. I forgot who was the other. I think Richard Austin also. They were some new signees. The West Indies board didn't like that, and the next test that was coming to Guyana, they decided to drop some of those guys. They didn't drop Croft, they dropped Desmond Haynes, who had scored 260s, mind you, in his first 2 test matches, right? A 60 in each game. And Clive Lloyd and them were not keen about that, the selection, and there was an impasse. The West Indies board would not relent, and Clive said he would step away, and all the players followed him. And they went to.
I've heard the stories. It's wild, man.
Played. So, and then when they all came back in mass, we had a team that played in between. They finished that series and played one series against India, led by Alvin Kalicharan. When Packer dismantled, they all came back, and the rest is history as to the run by the Great West Indies team for that 50 years or what have you.
But that Kerry Packer era is something we have to look at in detail at another. Definitely
I think Kerry Packer cricket had a significant impact in our cricket. That
it's happening right now. It's happening currently.
World beating team, and some lessons from that is things that we can talk about in terms of contemporary West Indies cricket. I'm sure Mark would have something to say about that.
Yeah, definitely. All right,
it's happening here too.
let's move on with Fredo, Roy Fredericks. Let's go to the greatest innings. Mark, can you remember where you were when Fredo was hitting that 169?
We were all in our house, glued to the radio. You remember back in those days, you had no television, you know, and Al McGilvery and these guys and Lillian Thompson, of course, they were a terror. You know, they had, I think, just demolished England. And I think so. Anyhow, you know, Frederick started and with Julian, I remember that. And you know, he just fought fire with fire. You know, very good reflexes. You know, he was always going to be attacking against that type of bowling, short balls, cutting and pulling and hooking. You know, it was an extraordinary innings, and to hear Ian Chappell and those guys speak about the innings, you know, I think you would get the full value for what it was. It was a tremendous innings, you know.
Right. Well, like you were saying, Ian Chappell on an ESPN Quick Info clip, he did you know, speak about that. So let's go to a little of what Ian Chappell said about that 169.
The West Indies came to Australia in 1975-76. It was the beginnings of that team that went on to dominate the world for, I don't know, 15 years or so. Fortunately for Australia, I don't think they realised how good they were at that point. They realised not long afterwards. They lost the series 5-1, which that's not a fair comparison of the abilities of the two teams. They came to Perth 1-0 down after losing badly in Brisbane. And Australia got a pretty decent total in Perth, 356 or something like that. Roy Fredericks played one of the most unbelievable innings I've ever seen. I remember talking to Roy early on. I played him, he made his debut in Australia in 68-69. And I can't remember, I think it was in the Caribbean in 72-3. We were sitting around having a drink afterwards. And Roy said to me, Ian, he said, hundreds don't bother me. He said, I like to get a nice little quick 40. That's what really I enjoy. Well, I wish he'd stuck to his word that day, because he got 169 of 145 balls. That's, you know, we're talking a test match. We're not talking a one-day game here. And he was out. I think the West Indies were only about 250 when he got out. It was quite amazing. But the other thing that will always stay in my mind till the day I die, the people in Perth, I don't think are great. They're not very knowledgeable on the game of cricket. And, you know, unless it's a Western Australian player doing it, they're not very interested in what's going on. And suddenly, you know, we're getting slapped around everywhere. I was at first slip, Greg was at second slip. Greg was captaining the side. And Roy's smashed another one for 4, you see, and there was this just smattering of applause, you see, and I thought, oh, what's that all about? And I looked over at the board and I saw 200. So I thought, Jesus, that's come up quick. So then I looked over at the bottom right-hand corner of the WACA scoreboard where the number of overs are, and it was the 20th over. Okay, they're 8-ball overs, but here we are in a test match and they've scored at 10 runs per over. It was, I just said to Greg, I said, have you had a look at the number of overs? And he said, mate, I'm not game to. He said, it's all right for you, you're not the captain of this. It was an amazing knock. I mean, Roy Fredericks, through sort of backward point to, about cover, through that area, he used to just delight in hitting, smashing balls through that area. I remember he got 100 in each innings against us in Guyana, playing for Guyana, his provincial team.
Yeah, Mark. I think that's the clip you had looked at. Anything you want to add there, Mark?
it just brought back memories. I'm gonna tell you something too. I remember when he came back from that tour, he brought that video and it was showed upstairs at DCC. But we have never been able to get that video again. Australia got a whole set of games from yesteryear, but I won 69. We can't get it. I had another guy in Guyana who had it. I think he had it on Betamax. You remember he had PHS and Betamax?
Yeah.
Or something like that, and it was born because he was promised to get it converted and give me a copy. No, man, that was an innings that really lifted the whole Caribbean, Guyana and the Caribbean and everything else. It was tremendous, man. But we in Guyana and in club cricket would have seen glimpses of that. But this was a different level.
Right. Basil, Ian Chappell said something interesting. He said more than a few things interesting. But one thing that stuck out was when he said that the West Indies did not realize how good they were at that time. How does that strike you?
I think he is correct, because remember, Viv Richards, Gordon Greenidge, Michael Holding, those guys were just starting their test careers. That was Holding's first tour. That was Greenidge and Richards' second tour. We had come off winning the World Cup in earlier that summer in England in '75, right? And so those guys were not that was a new team, if you remember, because that was Clive's second tour as a captain too, right? Because he took over 74, 75 going to India, and then won the World Cup, and then next series was in Australia. So the germination of what became was still bubbling at that time, and coming back from that experience, Clive obviously saw the value in getting more fast bowling, because at that time we had Roberts, and then Holding come on the scene, and shortly of a couple of years thereafter, we saw the Crofts, the Garners, the Wayne Daniels started just before those guys, and so on. And so you had this eclectic mix of fast bowlers, and then following that series, that was when it was the ending of that series, when Viv Richards went on his historic calendar year run in 1976, scoring the most runs ever in one calendar year. So that was like the germination, if you will, of what would become the golden era of West Indies cricket with the Clive Lloyd era, which was then followed by Viv Richards' captaincy.
Okay. All right, folks, we're talking about Roy Clifton Fredericks, the late great opener, and one of his favorite shots was the pull on the hook. Brian, did you get to see any clips of Fredo pulling or hooking?
Yeah, I got to see some clips of him pulling and hooking. Again, these were dangerous times when we weren't wearing helmets, compulsively in cricket the way we are now. Just the other day, at a game on an AstroTurf wicket in Philadelphia, in the highest level cricket in the country, I had to ask a veteran player to put a helmet on because a 19-year-old medium pacer was about to come on to bat, and he said, "I don't own a helmet." And even now, there's some of that left over, but trying to face some of that Australian fast bowling, Lilly and Thompson, and taking that ball off your face, that's a bold man. You can only applaud him for it.
All right. This here is Roy.
Willie, there was a great effort there. I'd say that it carried to Willie. Just a question of whether or not Fredericks jammed it into the ground. No, he didn't. My word, that was a good effort. One shot. Line stroke. 4 more. There's not much movement in the air there. Started David Steele's reach and 4 runs. It's a good shot, that, from Fredericks. No ball again. So it's something of a loose exhibition here by the England bowlers. Some lovely stroke play. Fredericks having just brought up the half century in only 36 minutes.
Mark, how would you describe the Fredericks hook to a young and upcoming cricketer in terms of technique and all of that?
I think the West Indian way, as we would have known it from back in the day coming up, but now it's a little different, was always entertaining. We had nice fast pitches, fast bouncy pitches. So to be a good batsman in those days, especially you had good fast bowlers, from Gilchrist come right down. We saw Charlie Griffith, Philbert Blair, you could name them coming down the line, Andy Robertson, all them. You had to be able to play the short ball good, which is to pull and to cut. And he was very, very good on those shots. He had his technique improved tremendously as he went on. And because remember, he made a lot of runs in England, right? And when he first started, he was not as so effective against spin bowling. But as the years went on, he was able to became a very competent player at spin bowling. He had his own style, but his technique was very effective. Back in those days, also you got to remember that some of the pitches were a lot more, damper. County cricket and even in England sometimes the ball seemed a lot, and he was able to adjust and adapt and be successful,
Right. Okay. Mark, from your experience and your years in cricket, how often would you have heard an incident where a batsman struck a 4 or 6 and then basically lost his wicket, because of his foot or something?
Are you referring to the finals in '75?
Yeah.
Well, as I say, that was the big finals. West Indies were up for that game. We had played Australia in, I think, a round before, and we had beaten them soundly when Kaichram put a good licking on Dennis Lilly. So we knew what to expect, and I think Fredo was up too, and he played a very good hook shot, but he lost his balance. It don't happen that often, but in cricket, once something is possible, it will happen sometime, But our disappointment of Fredo losing his wicket that way was soon quelled by the explosion of C.H. Lloyd.
But that game, I think that game was the Australia game. Right. Okay. The Australia game.
I was hardly daring to believe that this match would live up to the rank of World Cup final. But it did, right from the start, when Roy Fredericks, hoisting Lilly for 6, tragically trod on his wicket.
Bassett, what went wrong there from a technical standpoint?
I think what Fredo was doing was as all hookers of the bygone era, most of them would do. You get inside the line of the ball because you don't want the ball hit you, and trying to get inside the line of the ball, he lost his balance. Right, where he executed the shot, but he lost his balance trying to get inside, and his foot ended up hitting the stumps. I remember as a little boy listening when I hear Fred, I hear the shot, and then when he out, I could have cried.
Mark, can you remember your own reaction at that moment?
Yes, I think. Oh, I mean, as we call in that, it's everybody. We were all very anxious and nervous as West Indian supporters. The big final, we knew that we had a good team and we had beaten our share before, but we expected a tough game, and it's a final. There are Lily and Thompson and the Chapel brothers, the Walters, and all of them. And I remember Fredo hooking the ball for 6, and then next thing here he's out. That was disappointing, man. That was. The difference today is that back in those days, the cricketers compel you to look at the game, and you came sort of emotionally attached to some of them. When your favorite player batting, if they get out, it would dampen your mood for part of the day and all them sort of things. Right. I was a big Fredo and Greenwich and Lloyd and and Sobers fan. I mean, none of them like the others, but so when Fredo went all in the World Cup final, God, I remember, God bless his dead, watching listening to that game. My father too, and we felt very disappointed, and then we got into further trouble too.
All right, this is the Bits and Pieces, NYC. We're talking about cricket, and specifically this evening, Roy Clifton Fredericks. We'll be back shortly. All right, let's talk a little local cricket, and then we'll get back to Fredo. We have a clip from Mrs. Joyce Fredericks, the wife of late Roy Fredericks. I'll play that shortly. Brian, what would have been the takeaways from the recent matches that were played last month with the U.S. team? Is there like a general satisfaction with the progress of the team, or what kind of feedback you've got?
Sure. I mean, the U.S. team, I think, showed themselves pretty well in the 50-over matches that they played in Houston against Nepal and Oman and Scotland and the UAE. They've been very busy. They've, of course, now had to switch formats very quickly and head over to Zimbabwe to completely different conditions where they'll be playing in T20 matches. And I hope that the opening weekend of minor league cricket, helped to prepare those guys for that. I think generally around the country, everybody's really excited to have cricket going at the kind of pace that it's going at right now. There's almost too much cricket right now to keep track of in the US, with 25 games on TV almost every weekend for minor league. The US is over in Zimbabwe. India is going to be playing against the West Indies in Florida in just a couple of weeks. So there's a lot of cricket happening in the US. There's a lot going on. And I think people are kind of spoiled for choice right now if they've got Saturdays and Sundays off and want to watch some cricket at home.
What's your take, Mark? Do we have too much cricket? Generally, around the world, do we have too much cricket?
No. It's an industry. It's an industry, and it's.
I think we lost Mark temporarily. You're back with us, Mark?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
You not hearing me?
Go ahead.
You were asking me if it's too much of cricket?
Yes.
No, I don't think so. I think cricket, like everything else, is become a serious occupation. And you think about guys not only who were playing the game. Think about guys like Butch. They and his profession, more opportunity for him to be involved. You got guys, journalists like yourself. You also got commentators and trainers, and so I don't think it's too much of cricket.
Umpires.
Pardon me? Umpires,
Umpires as well. Hey, I'm right here, man.
Umpires, I don't think it's too much of cricket at all. Once the quality is good, and the facilities are good, I think it will make good television.
Okay, great. Let's talk a little about Fredo the man, and I have a clip. I have a few words here from Miss Joyce Fredericks, the wife of. Basil, we were talking a couple of weeks back about, what other sports, a cricketer might be able to play and maybe can grab a few things from that. Fredo played squash and table tennis. How do you think that may have helped the batting?
Yeah, squash, for example, tracking the ball, because the speed at which the ball was coming to react to it will have a great carryover to a batsman. Table tennis, the hand-eye coordination, so same as squash also, the hand-eye coordination will have a carryover to batting in cricket. So you had a lot of cricketers would play table tennis as part of their training, if you want to call it that, or preparation for playing cricket because of that hand-eye coordination. Yes, that would definitely help. I just wanted to, when Mark spoke about the emotional attachment, I remember the game when we narrowly beat Pakistan in that same 75 World Cup. If you remember, with Andy Roberts and Derek Moore.
Right. When he and Derek Moore, we had to anchor.
Yes,
yep.
I was in common entrance class, and my teacher was Forbes Burnham's sister-in-law, Miss Harper, related to Mark, Eileen Harper, and she was a cricket fanatic. And I remember in class stopped, and she turned the radio on. She had a little transistor on her desk, and the entire class was glued. When Andy Roberts hit that winning run, there was this euphoria in the class when he hit the winning run. I remember that was just the talk. One of the neighbors passed in the house, and my father was in the garden, and she said, Basil, I did not expect your old team to win that much. So that emotion of that 75 World Cup, and I could remember vividly when we because I think it was Lillian Thompson was batting last with Australia to chase in the West Indies. And I think it was a run out, if memory serves correct. We were playing cricket in the yard along with listening on the radio. And when that last wicket fell, it was pandemonium in the whole neighborhood. I mean, all of us who were growing up in the Caribbean at that time could probably tell you where they were when we won that World Cup in '75.
Definitely. Well, it seems like we wrote common answers around the same time.
Yes,
so, my teacher at Sacred Heart, he did the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, classes stuff, transistor radio.
Yes,
right?
Yes,
and everybody around the transistor radio.
Correct.
Where were you, Mark, when Murray and Roberts were taking us home?
Yes. Mark,
you got to unmute.
I was listening, but I can't remember exactly, where. But I know definitely I was listening. We were arguing to the radio, man, because one time it looked like if the margin of victory would have been wider, and then we had that partnership there with Thompson and Lilly, and then the crowd kept running in the field, and oh my God! But I can't remember exactly where I was, but I know I was definitely listening. That's a few years ago.
Mark, what about when the game against Pakistan, when Murray and Roberts had to put on the park?
The game against Pakistan, I don't think anybody, wherever you were sitting, nobody moved.
Exactly.
Listen to me. Clive Lloyd always speaks about that. He says if you wanted to go to the washroom, you have to wait till the over finish. You have to make sure you reach back there before the new over started. I mean, that was the type of interest and emotional attachment we had to cricket back in those days. And that was the start. So you could imagine the years that followed.
Yeah.
But I think it had a lot to do with not only the skill of the players, but we knew a lot of them personally. We knew a lot of them personally, so we could relate to them. As not just stars, but as human beings, and we understood.
Yeah.
Even though we were quite young, it was a very big occasion. It was massive.
You don't have a personal, emotional attachment to Craig Brathwaite batting in sunglasses. That doesn't touch you in your heart and really make you feel like the spirit of the game is flowing through you. That's not how it feels now.
A personal attachment to West Indies cricket. It's not the same if a Greenwich batting or a Craig Brathwaite batting. It's not the same. Our friends, or Clive Lloyd or Gary Supers, or Kanai or Butcher. No. It's not the same. I can't tell you.
Mark, for the sake of people who get into cricket, you would need to qualify that for us. You need to say why. Why it's not necessarily the same. Why you don't feel the same.
Because first of all, I think as human beings, these guys were different. They had no airs or graces, right? They were always willing to help. Basil Butcher was tough, right? But they were always willing to help and assist you in terms of the game. They'd speak to you, right? They interacted with the players. Okay, and for club cricket, forget about Guyana. For club cricket, they led by example, right? They led by example. If they're in a game and the situation tight, they put their head down and bat, right? Or they take up the ball and bowl. Butcher used to save his best performances in my club, DCC. Because even to now, I got a good friend called Cookie, he's a statistician. He's pulling up games from in the 60s where Butcher used to, But, and then when you see these guys play for Guyana too, back in the day, Bordeaux and Bridgetown is packed, and people were entertained. You understand what I'm saying? They were truly entertaining. I mean, the Prophets and them are good in their own way, but it's cheese to chalk, man.
Mark, I'll have to get them guys sometimes to defend themselves. Marcel, John was asking.
Hold on. They can't defend that. Listen to me, right? We have seen these guys play some innings in club cricket, full stop. We have seen them play some outstanding innings for Guyana. Fredo at how old he was, 40 something, made 200, come back and make a double and a single as a big man, right? Kanai and Sobers and these guys, they're different. It was box office.
Yes.
A different level, man. A different level.
We see these guys. We see these guys doing this.
Brian, would you say that your question? Brian, would you say that your question was kind of answered?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's interesting just to see sort of, I don't know, to use this bad word, like generationally. I wonder how it is and why it is that West Indies cricket, at one point was what really inspired the children of the West Indies, you two gentlemen, to start playing the game and to keep playing the game. But what is it that's getting kids into cricket now? Where are their heroes coming from? If it isn't Craig Brathwaite in shades, batting, opening the batting in a local first class fixture, is it the IPL? Is it the CPL? Is it going to be some American cricket enterprise that pops up? Where is it that kids are going to learn from now? And why isn't it the West Indies? Why isn't the West Indies cricket leading the way on that the way they used to? What is it that we can do to change the game so that this can be like the way that you guys remember it?
You raise a very interesting question that we often ponder. Mark and myself and others, we've had this conversation a zillion times. One of the factors today is we're in a different environment than in the past eras. So young people have so many more distractions than in the past eras where cricket was king, right? But then on the other hand, as what Mark was talking about, the cricketers was of the skill, the flair, the entertainment was of such a high level that you would pattern yourself to want to be like one of them as a young boy. You're playing cricket with your friends. We had so many to choose from to be a favorite that today it's because of the deterioration of the standard of West Indies cricket. You don't have those such players today. And we now in the social media age, and we got multiple formats in cricket today, unlike in the past where it was pretty much test cricket for the most part, and everybody aspired to that. But yes, we would like to see our youngsters, and because unlike, as Mark correctly stated, we listen to cricket on the radio. We learned about players, like say we all grew up in Guyana. We would get to see our international team once a year. So when a team was touring the West Indies, they come to they stopped at each territory. So we would get to see once a year, right? Whereas today, the young people turn the TV on. You got a zillion games to choose from, and they now choosing their heroes, if you will, or people they want to pattern themselves on. No longer is a West Indian. It could be a Virat Kohli or a Dave Warner or something of the sort. You know, when we were growing up, the guys we saw were all West Indian. So we there was nowhere else to gravitate to but to West Indians.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big point. All right. We're going to have a closing question. We're going to take that from John, John Aaron. John is
Hey,
saying,
John.
and this is for you, Mark. A question: where does Roy Fredericks rank among West Indies openers of his era, and who can be compared to him today?
Do you think the second part of the question is relevant?
It's not.
All right.
Yeah, I think we just covered that already. Yeah, we covered the second part already.
I would say that Fredo was as good as anything during his era. You know, I would say that he was excellent against fast bowling. He was a short bowler, you know, fast, bouncy bowling, hostile bowling. He was excellent in seaming conditions, you know, in England. If you remember that, and Butcher spoke about Fredo, but we got to remember too, he first played one of those very dogged innings in 1973.
Yes.
That's smart. I think with second test when the
bat through the inning, show that he could bat through the
Calypso players, he said no.
Yes.
We have a different beat now called the ska, which was a you know, and then he later developed into a very good player of spin bowling, you know. So I would rank him. Listen, Greenwich is Greenwich. As much as I love Fredo, I think I give Greenwich a little nod. But I you know, that's an argument. But I think that Fredo is as good as any one of them, you know, in his era. I don't think the second part of the question is relevant.
I agree with Mark.
Your take, Buster.
Yeah, I agree with Mark. And myself and my late father, we had this conversation several times about Fredo. Because my dad was there when Fredo started his test career, and you know, seen Fredo play his entire career. And he said Fredo, just as Mark said, Fredo was as good as any one of them. And he said, Fredo, he felt Fredo never got his just due, you know, as an opening batsman. He never really, and Fredo was similar to Conrad Hunt in that they both never had a steady opening partner throughout their careers. It was always themselves and somebody else. Whereas, you know, Greenwich and Haynes were blessed to play a bulk of their career together as an opening pair. It was Fredo and somebody. It was Conrad Hunt and somebody for the most part. And, you know, people who understand opening batting would know that it helps a lot if you have somebody who is reliable and consistent to play with. You know, that, you know, y'all develop a partnership of how you're going about doing things and complement each other and play off of each other, you know?
Right. Speaking of heroes and people to watch and emulate, Brian, is there anyone in the U.S. that is, you know, creating a buzz that whether bowling, batting, whether on the male or female side of cricket, and anybody buzzing that, you know, maybe by the time cricket heads here for the World Cup, you know, people might be talking about?
Well, Stephen Taylor, the opening batter for the U.S. in both the 50 over and the 20 over side. I can see Mark is smiling about Stephen Taylor. Now he's been playing in the U.S., played in the West Indies before then. Got to meet his father, Selvin Taylor, a couple of weeks ago. He was an ICC umpire, and so it was really lovely to meet him. He came out and watched one of my games, which is the most nervous I've been in a game for a while. Not often you get reviewed from an ICC umpire. But I think that Stephen Taylor's really come through recently. Jaskaran Malhotra, the man who hit 6 sixes in and over in an ODI last year, is recently back from injury, so he'll be back as well. Jesse Singh is always on the bowling. I mean, I believe Marty Kane, the former New Zealand left arm orthodox spinner, who's got a very strange sort of low actions, been bowling really well. He'll be playing in the team as well. I haven't seen as much women's cricket this summer as I'd like. I know there have been regional finals going on recently because the girls under 19 team is going to be playing. They have qualified for their T20 World Cup as well. So I'm sure there's lots of girls to be looking out for. Of course, Erica Rendler, the American like me, who's been playing with the women's team for a couple years now. Julia Price, I know, was the coach there. I believe she's left, and they're sort of entering a new era of American girls cricket. And I only hope that we get a lot more vision of that as the summer goes on.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Any closing words on Fredo, Mark Harper, before we call it a day? You got to unmute.
I think those of us who were privileged to see and play with Fredo would remember him until our number call. You know, he was able to, from the outset, put West Indies on the front foot in terms of, you know, taking that attack to the opening bowlers, you know, and giving West Indies that good start, you know. And the way he played his game, you know, he developed into a real solid professional, you know, understanding the importance of his role. And, you know, in the end, he ended up with, I think, 7 centuries from 59 games, which is not too bad, you know, which is very good, actually, you know. So my memory of Fredo, I remember, you know, all the great times we had on and off the field at DCC. I remember the wonderful innings he played for Guyana, of course, the 169. The other thing, too, was Butcher spoke at 250 in Barbados, but the story behind that was that Keith Boyce and them went into the Guyana dressing room telling them he's going to chase this and chase that. Fredo chased him out. Fredo said, "Oh, you move, I can put some licks on you." 250. You know, those guys were, I don't think people could appreciate what we're seeing today because they've never really seen him. Some of these guys, you know, even down to Laro, I don't think people really could appreciate how good these fellas could bat. And the pressure and the circumstances that they made the runs in, you know. But Fredo was exceptional. He was one of the West Indian greats. And, you know, may he rest in peace.
Okay, thank you. Basil, any closing words on Fredo?
As I said, I knew Fredo since I was a child, because he started with my father, and I'd been around, you know, the cricket from then. Knew him personally. Got to see him play every time I go to Border. I enjoyed after I left and came to the United States, and when I started to go back, my interactions with him, you know, we talking cricket and so on. You know, he was always a guy who always, you know, would interact and discuss the game. And I love speaking the game and listen to the stories of the old timers talking about their careers and other experiences. Well, my last in memory of Fredo as a player, the last Shell Shield game I saw in 1980 before I immigrated, Guyana was playing Barbados, and Wayne Daniel ran into him and bowled, I think, 2 or 3 consecutive bounces, and he hooked all 3 of them. You know, that was my last time I saw him play as before I immigrated. And that was the Roy Fredericks I remember, will always remember. You know, as I was telling you earlier, I visited him, myself, my dad, my brother, and another guy when he was on his deathbed there in the hospital, and we had a great conversation, you know. So I could say my last conversation with Freddie, it was a really enjoyable cricket conversation, despite the fact he was lying there with all these tubes hanging out attached to him all over. But you know, that conversation, I walked out of that hospital room saying I could see why this guy was fearless, because he was staring death in the face and there was no shirking or nothing in him. You know, that it hit me then how he could have took on Lillian Thompson on Port on that day when he made 169. Seeing him there, you know, and as Mark said, may he rest in peace. I always enjoyed my interactions with the great Roy Fredericks.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. Mark, thank you for stepping in from Georgetown and joining us, coming on board. You know,
Nice to
really
meet you,
pleasure
Mark.
having you here.
It was a pleasure to be with you guys tonight, man. Y'all gotta send me the link when you're gonna let me know so I could see it whenever the show. I don't have to come up, but I can see it.
Yeah, on Facebook. I'm gonna.
Yeah, definitely. I'll let Brian share it with you, and you know, every now and then we'll definitely reach out to you to
Yes,
you know, borrow some of your cricket knowledge and things.
Yes,
And,
yes.
Anytime, guys.
Some of your strong opinions about West Indies cricket.
Yes.
Brian, thank you again for, you know, coming on board, be with us.
Good to see you, John.
I know we had you a little on the toward Mantle.
That works. It's all good. Listen, I'm in Texas from tomorrow until Monday, so I'll send you guys a bunch of pictures and stuff from there. I'll show you everything that's up right now. I'll show you who's hooking the ball out of the ground today.
I think Andy is good for us to have these discussions because a lot of these players like the Roy Fredericks and so on and so forth are not spoken of. You don't hear their names being called when you listen to commentary because a lot of the commentators today never saw those guys in the first place. So it's really important for us to talk about those guys to let these young West Indians and so on know upon whose shoulders they stand. You know, because I you know, it's interesting that a lot of, you know, people don't even know about a guy like Rohan Kanai, you know, and he was one of our great batsmen that played the game. But a lot of these young guys, they don't even know who he is. And I would just want to end with this because Guyana is one of the only cricket stadiums where there are no names on the stands. And it's been an ongoing discussion. And I feel just by putting some of the great Guyanese cricketers' names on those stands and naming the stands out, would encourage this generation, you know, to Google and find out who these people are that you know that they can understand. They're following a legacy of greatness when it comes to cricket in Guyana. Just talking specifically about Guyana and youngsters in Guyana, but this is all around the Caribbean too. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. And you know, it's been good. We've been talking about Roy Fredericks. All right. Please join us next week, same time, 7:30, for another edition of Bits and Pieces. We're up.
It's in the air, but safe through mid-wicket. Will it go through? It'll go through, I think, for 4 for his 100. Well, it stopped, but they were just considering whether they could run 4. But Fredericks happy to take 3 and move on to 99. And Tony Greig coming in to bowl to him. A nice ball to receive on 99, yet another half volley. Steered away this time to third man. And whoever you support in this game of cricket, there's one man that you really must acknowledge here today. Brilliant 100 in just 2 minutes. Over 2 hours 20, 17 fours. His 7th 100 in Test match cricket. 3rd time he's done this against England.